Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be able to say to you, welcome to Cabal Vision HD, the new official Blood Bowl TV.
Hello everyone, and welcome to a quick guide to Kislev. I'm the Sage, and I'm going to be talking you through one of my favorite rosters in Blood Bowl, the Kislev roster. Now these guys were formerly known as Slann. They've just been reskinned for Blood Bowl 2, which means that there's actually a lot known about them already. The Kislev are a very, very weird team. They are different than most other races. The only one that plays kind of like them are vampires. And what makes them so different is that everyone except for the big guy has leap and very long legs. Now that makes for a very, very weird kind of game. The Kislev roster has 4 positional types: the bear, blitzer, catcher, and lineman. Let's start off with the bear. It is a kroxigor, which means movement 6, strength 5, agility 1, armor 9, prehensile tail, mighty blow, thick skull, bonehead, and loner. It only gets access to strength skills. Now, the kroxigor on lizards is really, really good, whereas the kroxigor on Kislev is, I don't think you really need him per se. This is to do with the very, very different playstyle that you have when you're playing as Kislev. The game is much more dynamic. You don't form a wall, you hop all over the place, and I find you can often play without a bear altogether. The blitzers are the real core of the team in my opinion. They have the same stat line as a human blitzer, 7-3-3-8. They start off with leap and very long legs like all the other acrobats, which means they leap on a 3+. They start with jump up and diving tackle, which are really poor starting skills but great skills for later on. Importantly, they have general, agility, and strength access. The only other player that has that is the vampire. Now this means that you can build all kinds of really, really good and funny and interesting and powerful players. They start off at 110k, which is a lot of money for a player with not even block. But once you get to use that general agility strength access, they are very, very much worth it, and their starting skills also become more worth it later on. Next up we have the catcher. Now the catcher has a stat line of 7-2-4-7, so with only strength 2 they get punched quite easily, and they don't have dodge to begin with. But agility 4 plus leap and very long legs means they can leap on a 2+. They've also got diving catch, which is kind of a fringe skill. And with general and agility access, you can give them, elf-like abilities. But leaping on a 2+ is of course a very, very big asset that normally is reserved for agility 5 elves and such. So the catcher is your most mobile player, but you don't want to overload on them because of how incredibly fragile and easy to punch they are. Next up we have the lineman. Now the lineman doesn't look like much because he's the same as a human lineman, 6-3-3-8. But he starts with leap and very long legs and only costs 10k more. He only has general access, but don't let that fool you, because you can get quite a lot of really, really good value out of that, especially because the skills that will make him a really good sacker are all in the general category anyway. So these guys can be quite valuable to your squad still. There's a number of ways you can build a starting Kislev team, but the main thing is you want to skill your blitzers early. The way I found best to do that is to hire 2 blitzers, 1 catcher, fill up to 11 with linemen, and then buy 4 rerolls. Now, next to vampires, Kislev are the only race where I would recommend starting with 4 rerolls, but you really need them because you don't have block, you don't have dodge, and you do have leap. Now this leaves you 20k towards your apothecary, which is going to be your first purchase, so that means you can probably buy it after only a single game. Now you could opt to replace one of these linemen with another catcher because you have the money for it. However, that will leave you with 2 players who have strength 2, armor 7, no block, and no dodge. So I wouldn't recommend that. Importantly, to develop your team well, what you want to do is make sure your blitzers get your star player point. So you pick up the ball with the catcher, and you hand it off or pass it if need be to the blitzers who make your touchdowns. If you make sure that in your first couple of games, both blitzers get 2 touchdowns, then you're well on your way to developing a good team. I would wait a while until you hire another one. Basically, I make sure that all the blitzers I have at least 16 star player points before I start hiring new ones. If the long-term development prospect of the blitzers doesn't work for you, you can go for a much more short-term build. For example, if you get the bear and 3 catchers, you can afford 4 rerolls still. And that means you've got quite a much better starting team really. Because the bear can throw a punch and he can tie people up a bit. And with 3 catchers, you're not going to have that much trouble scoring. However, this team has nowhere near the same long-term potential because you won't be developing blitzers, and once you've grown a bit, hiring a new blitzer is actually going to be much harder to get him going because your opposition will be able to counter him much better. When developing your Kislev team, you'll want to try and pick up with the catcher, hand off to the blitzers and score with them. try and score 2 touchdowns with 1 blitzer in your first game just to get in block. And that should probably also give you enough winnings, 30k to get your apothecary. And in the second game, you'll try and score 2 touchdowns with your other blitzer who also gets block. From there on out, you can already start diversifying a little bit. What I would try to do is build one blitzer into more of a killer role, so he would get mighty blow, and the other one more of a marker annoying type of character who would get dodge first. As soon as both blitzers have 16 start player points, I would consider the right time to buy the third one. And as you can see, they cost 110k, so that's a lot of dead team value basically, because these players are not that good. So again, you'll want to skill this guy as soon as you can. The other two can kind of handle their own now. And I really like having a frenzy one, because with 3+ leaping, some really cool serfs open up. And as soon as he's got 16 star player points, again, you'll want to hire a fourth one, and I would just go with another blodge at this point. Although you could go with 2 killers if you prefer. So now that we've got all of these 4 would be a good time to start working on the catchers. But first let's see how I would develop them. So the killer needs tackle and he really needs piling on. This is kind of the standard killing set. Now since you start off with jump up, I could actually see you start with piling on before tackle. That's kind of a matter of preference. After that things get a bit more shady. Juggernaut's really good with piling on because it lets you cancel wrestle, it lets you cancel fend. Dodge is also quite valuable because, you know, blodge is just really, really good. For the marker types, I would say you want sidestep on one and stand firm on the other. You can actually get multiples of those. You'll probably also want guard. Blodge step guard is just really, really good. And this guy can just sidestep into a cage and stuff like that. Tackle is invaluable as well because the guys dodging away from you, you don't want them to have their skill reroll. And for the other one, I like stand firm. The reason for this is because with stand firm, you're not able to push him off if you occupy all the corners, especially useful for marking ball carriers. For the same reason, you'll probably want tackle, and at some point you're going to need guard as well. Now for the frenzy guy, 2 crucial things are not getting counter-surfed. I like sidestep for this, although stand firm works. And Juggernaut because turning both downs into pushes really, really increases the chance of getting your surf. Also cancelling stand firm will help with that sometimes. At this point I would consider the blitzers really finished, but note that one of them is already a legend and the other 3 are superstars, and I've only given them normal skills so far. So you can see how you can make a really, really excellent team with just the normal rolls on just the blitzers. Of course, the catchers are also pretty useful, and you'll want to start off with dodge on them probably. So I typically give all of my catchers dodge as first skill. You'll also want block on them because, you know, blodge is just really good on elf type players. And for your first catcher, I would definitely recommend following this up with sure hands. I'd already hire the second when your first one has 16 star player points, provided all your blitzers are done. But sure hands is just really good because your team with its leap has a great potential for sacking, and you want to build a retriever out of a catcher. One skill that's really valuable on a catcher is guard, because obviously you'll need a double for it, but these guys can 2+ leap to provide an assist in a cage, and since you're going to build some really good sackers, having guard assists helps that a lot. And once you've got all of that, you're kind of set, and sidestep kind of just synergize with that a little bit. And basically what you'll want is just more blodge. So if you get more catchers, I don't think you really need them per se. I think you can play fine with just 2. I would again start out with dodge and add block obviously. And we might turn this into something more valuable later, but for now let's just see how this looks. Note that once we have all of our positionals skilled up, you've actually got 8 guys who have access to blodge with just normal rolls. And that is really, really valuable. I mean, even though they start with 0 block and 0 dodge, you can get almost a full squad built up. Now let's have a look at the linemen. The linemen make for really, really good sackers. See, if you just give wrestle and strip ball, both of which are general skills, you've got a better sacker than a war dancer is if he's got strip ball. You can get another one wrestle tackle to deal with those pesky blodge sure hands types guys. and you'll definitely want a kicker as well to get control over where the ball goes. At this point you've got your basic set of linemen finished already, but ideally you'll want to roll plus agility on one, because that turns your leaping from 3+ into 2+. Anyone who's ever had an agility 5 war dancer knows how great this is. Now imagine having wrestle, tackle and strip ball with that. It's just awesome. If you are lucky enough to have such a player and you roll skills again, I might consider Pro, because it lets you, it's the only thing that lets you reroll a leap, and if you have already used your team reroll for the leap, then you have Pro for the sack if need be. For your lineman, if you get a doubles, guard is pretty good. If you have the doubles as first skill, I'd recommend block after that, but it's not a problem getting it after wrestle that much either. Agility on a catcher is not bad. He doesn't really need it because he already leaps on a 2+, but it's very nice for retrieval purposes. Stat up on the blitzers are a bit more complicated. You don't really need the movement. Agility is kind of nice. Strength is awesome. If you get strength on a blitzer, it just synergizes with everything they do really, really well. While not as synergetic for a marker as strength would be, agility is actually really good on the blitzers as well. Since they get dodge, you can dodge like an elf now, and you can leap everywhere you want. This means your killer can kill gutter runners behind enemy lines. This means your surfer can do some really funky plays. And even for the markers, it means that they can reach that ball carrier more reliably than they otherwise could. So agility is also really, really good for the blitzers. The only player I'd really pick movement on is a catcher, and here it's mostly for one-turning. If you get one, it may be worthwhile to actually develop him in such a way. Sidesteps helps with that and makes him a better all-round player, but I might actually consider Sure Feet and Sprint for that kind of guy. Now note that Slann will probably need one-turning a little bit less, since people will find it very, very hard to cage and stall against a team like this. That's also where their main strength is. No one will be safe from you. As you can see, this developed team has 2360 team value already, and it doesn't even have a big guy yet. I usually choose not to play with one, but your team can be quite good with one. You can still kroxigor basically. So you can get guard as your first skill, stand firm as your second. If by your third skill you haven't rolled block yet, I would probably fire it, replace it, and try again. So let's assume you get a doubles by now. You'll definitely want block. After that, your options get a little bit less enticing. Grab is nice, especially for setting up surfs. And of course, break tackle lets you use him in a more mobile way. So those would be the two skills I would pick up after that. On a second doubles, dodge would be pretty good, although pro might actually be valuable as well. So this is what a really, really epic finished Kislev team would look like. However, note that you're not that likely to get here, because your blitzers are markers. They're going to go in the kinds of places where you get punched a lot. And so getting to the point where your blitzers are this developed, probably not going to happen. But at least now you know what to aim for, and what kinds of players you could develop if you had the chance. As for actual gameplay, try and avoid leaping whenever you can, and rely on regular blocking and running plays if at all possible. Leap can be really cool, and the threat of leap might already be enough to really change the way your opponent plays. If you just get your punches in, position well, and try and provoke the situations where you can steal the ball, then you can reserve your leap for the kinds of plays that war dancers would also be making. You do have a bunch of armor, you do have strength access, you can play a punching game fairly well, and once you have a shot at the ball, then go for it, leap right in, get your guard in if you must, steal that ball with your sure hands guy. You can score quick if you want, you can stall if you're able. You don't need to stall as much as many other races do, simply because giving the ball back to the opponent is not that scary, because you have just the right tools to take it away from him again. It's always kind of hard to explain how to play a race without actually showing it, so in the next couple of videos I will have some gameplay examples for you, both from low team value and from high team value Kislev teams. If you enjoyed this guide and would like to see more content like it, then do remember to hit the subscribe button, and of course a thumbs up is always very much appreciated. Good luck in building your Kislev team, and I hope to see you on the pitch. Yes. Let's pick them both down. Hey, I've got juggernauts. Yes, please. Thank you.
You bastard.
Look at this guy. Good skills.
There we go. I like my Slann already.
Si l'équipe perdante refait son retard dans peu de temps qui reste, je veux bien manger le ballon.